Well, I got lots of different feedback from the briefing. I was there. I was one of the briefers. I thought we did a dynamite job.
No one is more pleased with themselves these days than Mike Pompeo, and with as little cause as possible. So Mike Pompeo, his job is to try to make sense of what has come out from the Trump administration about the intelligence that led up to the strike against Qassem Soleimani. So it appears, based on everything we've seen that's been leaked from people who've talked with Trump, who were involved in the process, that this was a result of Trump's impetuousness. He got emotional and decided to do something that the Pentagon didn't expect him to do. Wall Street Journal reported last night that he also apparently was under pressure from some senators who will be involved in the Senate impeachment trial that wanted him to do something about Soleimani. So that was apparently on his mind too, which is just great. But you can't come out and say that. You have to pretend that you had some sort of cause that had to do with stopping an impending attack. And so he's been on the news a lot. We're gonna go through some of his recent appearances. Before we get into it, Brett, we haven't talked about this topic in a bit.
Well, in terms of the pressure that he was feeling from senators involved in the impeachment hearing to do the impeachment trial to do something about Soleimani, under pressure from whom? From their constituents? Because none of their constituents knew who this guy was before.
I doubt a lot of the senators did. But unfortunately,
I want to find out what states they're from and what states, if those states are home to like massive military contractors.
I mean, that's one of the frustrating things. The Wall Street Journal had this long piece. The thing I just referenced is like halfway in it. It's one sentence. And then that's it. It begs so many questions, and we have no answers at this point. And we're also gonna have some video of Mike Pompeo, which will probably answer none either. So, okay, let's jump into a little bit of his attempt last night to clarify the intelligence leading up to that strike. Obviously, many Democrats have been frustrated by the briefing that happened a couple of days ago, even some Republicans, including Rand Paul and Mike Lee. So here is Mike Pompeo.
There is no doubt that there were a series of imminent attacks that were being plotted by Qassem Soleimani. We don't know precisely when, and we don't know precisely where.
Okay, so here's the thing.
That's not what imminent means.
Imminent means something, and if we don't know when and we don't know where, look, that does not mean that they didn't have any intel. I don't believe that they had any intel, but they could hypothetically still have intel that was extremely vague. But this is not reassuring.
Well, he was planning attacks. That's kind of his job. And I don't want to excuse that by saying that's his job, but what I want to point out specifically is like, our military has a plan for everything. Our military always, you hear him talk about it, like, I have a plan that if I want to do X, Y, and Z within the next like 3 or 4 minutes, I can do it. And is that what they're referencing? We don't know, specifically because they're not telling us. And that smirk that I see on Pompeo's face looks like he's so pleased because he gets to be the guy who lies to us. He gets to be the guy who can show up and who can say, there's an imminent attack. I can't say any more than that. And he gets so horny from that. He gets so war hawk aroused by being able to be the person who just disseminates vagaries, and there is no consequence for it.
Yeah, and he has the smirk of a person who knows that nothing he says truly matters.
He's making it up. He's making it up. Prove me wrong.
We won't be able to. But we do have more video, and so take a look at this and see if you're as frustrated coming out of it as I was.
Well, the president said Soleimani wanted to blow up the embassy. Is that accurate? He wanted to blow up the embassy.
It was his forces that penetrated our embassy just a handful of days before that. Kataib Hezbollah warriors, orchestrated, directed by Qassem Soleimani himself. I don't think there's any doubt that Soleimani had intentions not only to take action against our forces, our diplomats in Iraq, but in other countries around the region and world as well.
That wasn't a response to, what she said was, Trump, as of his last night rally, said they were gonna blow up our embassy. That is a specific reference he is making to a specific plan. And when Mike Pompeo was asked about that, he says, well, they surrounded the embassy, and so there's no doubt that they didn't like it. So was Trump making that up? Like, was the president like totally just of his own will making up a reference to a specific terrorist attack that was about to happen to justify what he did? Mike Pompeo had an opportunity to show that Trump had not just made it up, and he declined to do so.
Yeah.
And so coming out of this, I have to assume, yeah, Donald Trump just imagined, you know what will sound good? what if he was gonna blow up the embassy? That's good. Let's roll that out in public as if it's the truth.
Yeah, it's I was listening to CNN this morning, and it was Swalwell talking to, I think, Breonna Keeler. And there was just this voice that Breonna Keeler had where she knows she has to ask these questions, and Swalwell knows that he has to say, again, we are being essentially lied to by the intelligence, by like the intelligence briefers or who aren't giving us any information. And Breonna Keeler is just kind of going through the motions of like, here's what the president said. Are you refuting that? Are you directly refuting that? And I just want us all to take a breath and look at the media apparatus and say, it's the same thing. It's the same thing that always happens. They tell us that we really, there are very important things that mandate that we need to take these military actions, and we can't tell you exactly what it is. And at the very best, we're cherry picking things that are tangentially related right before the part of the sentence that completely refutes it.
Yeah, and it has, like, getting to the bottom of whether they're lying or not, I think has become more consequential as time has come on for a couple of different reasons. First of all, the strike against Soleimani set off a chain of events through which we don't know all of the details, but a passenger jet was shot down and 162 people lost their lives, or 176 people lost their lives. That's pretty consequential. Now there's reporting from the Wall Street Journal showing that it might have been intended to just shore up his support among Senate Republicans in advance of the Senate trial. All of this means that it's even more important than normal, and normally it's critically important to know if we're being lied to gin up support for a war. It's so important that we get to the bottom of this, and I would say that even in that case, he's being allowed to sort of just slip and slide his way through these interviews.
And the comparable previous escalation into war was in the wake of 9/11. So that was a wildly traumatic experience for the American public. So if I'm looking back, I can at least understand how people were a little blinded to the realities and not asking the questions that they should have been asking. But now there was no 9/11. Like what are we doing? There wasn't anything. Why are they still falling victim to the same tricks without the excuse of having gone through a traumatic experience? And I think another thing that's important to focus on is if we're asking these questions like, are we safer now or not? Was it important to take out Soleimani or not? Just look at the before and after pictures. Before, there was a person in charge of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and the Quds Force who was trying to back militias to work for Iranian interests against American interests. Look at after. They have someone doing that now.
Yeah.
They've been replaced.
Maybe that person's not as skilled.
But it's maybe they're
person's
not as
there.
skilled, but they were the number two. And it's affiliated with a nation, with a country. It's not like when you kill Osama bin Laden, he's the guy in charge of he's like the best player on a crappy team, essentially. Instead of a country of millions and millions of people, the size of basically like a third to half of the United States, and they have a history of being like Persia and then into Iran, and then they are like really good at war stuff. That's like a thing they do well. But then the before and after was before this happened. Yes, there were people, American interests abroad, who were in the standard amount of danger that they're always in as a result of years and years of American foreign policy.
Yeah.
But after this, they're in more direct danger, worse danger, and the after picture is worse than the before picture, and you need to judge it as such.
And thankfully, the American people, according to surveys, seem to get that, even though it has not been made really clear to them by the media. At some point, you can't just have hard questions for Mike Pompeo. At some point, someone beyond just Chris Hayes has to have their show on MSNBC be, we have given the administration I can't even tell you how many opportunities to prove that they did not lie us into this thing. They have declined to do so, and thus it is our responsibility to say they lied to us, and they continue to lie to us. And they can say that they want peace, but they just, the Iraqi parliament said they want our soldiers out. Military just put out a letter last night saying, nope, we're not going anywhere. In fact, we're sending more people in. They still want a conflict with Iran. I don't care about one little speech Donald Trump gave. He has multiple times brought us to the brink. He has done nothing to prove that he's not going to do that again. And with that combined with his rampant dishonesty means that no one should trust them when it comes to this topic. That is what all of them should be doing today. And unfortunately, I don't think it's gonna happen. Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.